I told my team long ago, and I keep reinforcing this, to kind of stay on offense, not on defense, because with this, there's too many disparate bits of misinformation to respond to. Plus, defense kind of has to be done in exactly the right way. Otherwise, it just sounds like whining. And here, what I mean is this. Philosophically, a defense, ideally, the best defenses anyway, it takes the energy of any attack and it uses it against the attacker. Now, I'm not advising my team, or you, quite frankly, not to respond when they or you encounter any of the lies that are leveled against me. Far from it. You should reply, but wisely. To simply react, well, that actually kind of keeps you on defense. You don't simply counter block or just naysay whenever some attack is thrown. You use it to expose the weaknesses of the attacker. And it doesn't matter if the attacker is a king or not. In fact, kind of bursting through the unclothed emperor's illusions, it causes the king to look like a buffoon with each subsequent attack. So their next ones are incrementally, clumsy, especially when the attacker is law enforcement, because they're supposed to be the echelon. So I know I promised you that I was going to get into the second relevant part of the boom factor memo, but I'm going to take a diversion here for a minute to do these what I call the Kings of Tupelo Hapkido class. This is the Laura Curtis edition, master class here. I'm going to give you this lesson for free. And slowly, these techniques, the utilization of what I'm teaching here, they're going to chip away at their facade, kind of eroding the public confidence, stripping away the patina of that faux credibility, and slowly they'll bleed out and exhaust themselves and consume themselves and each other as if each is his own kind of parasitic, self-devouring cannibal. I hate that I actually even have to do this because it's, in my mind, it's boring, it's kind of asinine, but I guess, I need to be able to respond to these little individual things. Now, for decades, between Taekwondo training cycles, I would cross-train all my students during what's called dead weeks in an art called Hapkido. During the off days of even the regular cycle at the Tupelo location, I leased out the empty floor space for Aikido classes. And for those of you that are in the know, think of using those principles for this and apply them well. You don't have to worry about the other side applying these principles because they don't know how, and they can't. Because in this instance, really truth, which is required, is leverage. They only know the lies, kind of absurd ones even, impossible ones, and they're amateurs. White belts is the way I look at it, like Kevin Curtis, white belts who pretend to be black belts, and they're quickly exposed. The best they could really kind of muster is, oh yeah, well what about? So when they do that, remember that whataboutism every time is just it's a non sequitur. It shows or it proves their lack of merit to an actual argument. So in part one of this, let me show you how to do it. Buy the book. Now this isn't my book. I didn't invent telling the truth. It's just going to look that way because no one else that the studio interviewed, except for Janet, has been using the truth really for the better part of a decade. So I think in part because they had no clue whatsoever the lies that they've been making up over the last 10 years would even be countered, since they've all been under the impression that I'm kind of forced silent, muted, and kind of deaf to their absurd claims. That's been bolstered in that they've experienced that the fake news will probably kind of just proudly trumpet, regurgitate whatever fabrications they come up with, and even make up new ones, attacking me, in other words, someone that they thought was not in a position to defend himself to you. So I'll show you how to properly react by using the truth, the Hapkido principles, against very specific fake claims that were made by the various buffoons of the Kings of Tupelo. Well, let's start with the claims of...
This call is from a federal prison.
Perfect timing. Because in the scheme of things, those false claims, they look harmless. But it's relevant later as we tie back into it. In the Kings of Tupelo and various media in the last decade, the occupation, you'll notice, assigned to me has always been, he's a martial arts instructor. And that's it. So why do you think that is? Why do you think they do that? It's easy. It's because to the uninitiated simpletons of the world, a martial arts instructor is i.e. a karate man. That's an easy thing to kind of lampoon. Think of Eddie Murphy's character in jail in Trading Places, the movie. Or you can even think Kevin Curtis if you wish, because it fits. And not even the Way brothers of the studio could avoid that kind of cliche, resisting that predictable temptation to roll that horrible 1970s song, Kung Fu Fightin'. It was just really predictable. It's sad, it's pathetic, really, but it's an insult to those of us who actually get it, those who live it, because that's personal. It shows them as the kind of simpletons that they are. It exemplifies, their arrogance, presuming that you are stupid. And yet, you discover along the way, even watching just that one episode, that Mr. Dusky seemed to have been much more than just that. Well, was Dusky a newspaper owner? Was he a politician? Did he do things for an intelligence organization? Was he an insurance broker? Was he a musician? Well, the truth is, all of those things are true, and much, much more. But none of that is actually presented. What's ever presented, even in the headlines, is just karate instructor. That's pretty funny, isn't it? Now, for some kind of deep-seated psychological reason, it was important to the Dusky detractors, who've really been the only ones with a microphone for the last decade, to hide certain things from you, from the public, including the 1996 Pre-Olympic Training Committee, and also that I was the CEO of a telecom company, with the primary headquarters right there in Mississippi. That I personally founded that company and grew it from scratch and employed people who were there, who were also dependent on the success of all of my business ventures, and that I was well supported even in that community, because it, for some reason, portraying me as some disassociated, disaffected, angry, lonely type, it minimizes me, and that's important to them for some reason. It somehow satisfies their need to enhance their stature by minimizing others, which is a very sad trait that's found in most of the insecure regions of human nature, but those people do exist, and even in Tupelo, of course. And those seem to be the people that rush to the microphone. I think it's probably born out of the fear that somebody else might grab it. So let me make something clear. I did not work for Jack Curtis.
This call is from a federal prison.
We knew that. It's presented that Jack Curtis owned an insurance company, but that's not true. And that I was an employee of his, also not true. That's false. That's not how insurance works. In fact, Jack had a contract, a branch contract, with United American, meaning he was the captive agent. I was not. I was not the captive agent. I was independent, meaning I could hold other, and did, multiple carriers. He couldn't. In fact, Jack Curtis actually ended up dropping his United American contract right about the same time that I did. Here's another one. It's irrelevant, but it's in there, so I'm just correcting the record. In the Kings of Tupelo, Laura Curtis presents that a bunch of agents hung out at Jack's office every day. That's also untrue, and it makes no sense. That, again, that's not how insurance companies work. That's not how insurance agents work. Each agent keeps his own office somewhere. Mine was miles away, somewhere else. No one was at Jack's office but Jack. Now, it's true that once a week, agents might go to Jack's office to meet or to pick up blank forms or to have Jack resolve some client issue or another. But that is not where business happens for anybody except for Jack, because each agent is independent. She talks about the quote-unquote work environment. There was no work environment. So if Laura Curtis was, and I quote directly from the show, flirtatious, as she describes, or, quote, provocative, or if she was completely naked, no one would have even noticed because no one was there. I certainly wouldn't have known it. She also claims now to have been Jack's secretary. Well, pick one. Were you an agent or a secretary? You can't be both. I recall the secretary, and it was not her. But, whatever. Maybe she became that after I left. I don't know. She also claims that they, I'm using her words, quote, they, called her sex secretary. Well, who did that? I don't know anybody. I didn't do that. Who did that? I never heard anyone do that. So who are they? No one called her that. Aside from one appointment that she and I ran together, my total time around that person was less than 10 minutes cumulatively. Also, she talks about some kind of a porch swing. There was no such porch swing. That doesn't make any sense. There was no indication whatsoever of any romantic interest between from her or from me to her, between us at all. That I don't understand why it's being presented that way. Oh, also, she claims that my business card said life insurance on one side and Minta on the other. That is completely untrue, and it makes absolutely no sense. But it is her claim, so she's the one that bears the burden of proof. It's her claim, in fact, that I, quote, handed it out. So, you know what, Laura, go ahead and show us. Why didn't you show Netflix this fictional card? If it existed, and it doesn't, they certainly would have shown it. So go ahead, show it. So note to Laura, Vistaprint, my Vistaprint account, it still exists. Every single card order, even from 2005, is still on file with them, and my login still works. I can prove your statement is a lie, but you're the one that made the statement, so you bear the burden of proof. So the question is, why? Why would you make that stuff up? What insecurity, what personal issue are you trying to deal with using counterfeit medicine that you know to be counterfeit? What is it inside of you that you think is so missing that requires that kind of compensation? What part of you do you believe is so deficient, so lacking, that you feel you needed to medicate it with lies about another person? I'm here to tell you, Laura, this is microcasting here. You never needed to do that to fill whatever you think you dislike about yourself. All you ever needed was acceptance. Accept your own imperfections and weaknesses, and then do the introspection that you need to get to that acceptance, and then work on that. Oh, and by the way, for the last decade now, your comment, like the one you made to GQ magazine, about me being, quote, short, it never worked. There are one of the most prominent pictures of me on the internet is the daggum mugshot in front of the measuring thing there. I'm 5'11". You are 5'2". So, to you, no one is short. So stop it. Nice try. Also, the little comment about receding hairline. You think it may attack what you think is my sense of vanity, but that's obviously not true. Photos from 2013 show the same exact hairline as 1990. It is not receding. I've never even had that problem. I still don't. So those kind of easily debunked claims, they kind of make you look silly. They kind of make you look desperate. And I'm really sure that's not how you want to appear. Now, to those people that are listening, I hope that what you're saying right now is, who cares? No one cares about some stupid insurance office in some city that no one gives a damn about. I hope you're actually saying that because it's true. All of that stuff is completely irrelevant to the KC letters of 2013, and quite frankly, so is Laura Curtis. I mean, seriously, somebody tell me, how is any of that germane to anything? How is she? How is this even considered entertainment? Why on earth would the studio or Netflix think that kind of pettiness is anything but asinine? It's filler. It's occupying space and time of serious reveals that Netflix could have made. So if you, listening at home or work or in your car, if you watched that thread with anything but interest or disinterest really, I'd like to know how, because nothing about it really compels us. Yes, please tell us more, Laura. So yeah, I'm really sorry about this entire thing. I know that this sounds like a useless rant, but that's because it is. It's because the things I'm responding to are useless little details that didn't advance the narrative at all. It didn't advance the story at all. My thinking is that Laura Curtis's only value here was as a character witness against Kevin Curtis, her husband, or ex, or whatever it is he is. And I imagine that the bulk of the 170 million Netflix subscribers, I imagine you all feel exactly the same. And by the way, a small side note, I have absolutely no idea who that other agent is, Brandon something or other. I can't see the series, I can only hear it, and this this particular prison, the Bureau of Prisons, only allows me to hear it in 10-minute bites. So, but I don't recall whoever that dude is, not at all. It's just another person who claims to know me, yet really doesn't. But like a bunch of others, Laura Curtis really had no actual substantive ties to me. In my mind, she viewed this Netflix series as some sort of an opportunity. An opportunity to do what? I don't know. She's not the one in federal prison. I am. All of this could really, the only thing this could possibly do for her is create controversy for herself, and I'll bet it has. There was no affair. There was not even a hint of it. Her participation in the project, like most of the others, became, in my opinion, kind of an over-participation, and so here she is. A perfect example of the primary problem. She considers this as some sort of a game, but it isn't. For me, and for all those that were harmed by my prosecution and my absence, now for 10 years, who were never interviewed, this is actually very deadly serious. It is not a game. Trust me. If anybody if anybody feels differently about that, feel free to opine here or text me via proxy, of course, to offer whatever it is that you think that I'm missing. I've got a few more in this small series that I'm calling Hapkido, and until then, till that call, that's my three chords and the truth.